its structure changes. If the density reaches a limit, a new phase may arise. A new configuration, perhaps inside a unique geometry, appears. Its own laws. If we allow that each black hole is potentially connected with a new space, then the cosmos becomes a tree. A star is born, lives, collapses, and gives rise to a new branch. If such processes are countless, the number of possible worlds is enormous. This is not a claim. This is reflection on structure. If the universe is capable of giving birth to others, it becomes recursive. Recursion is repetition within repetition. If the cosmos is recursive, it can continue endlessly. Each new branch contains the potential for the next. If so, then our universe may not be the first, nor the last. It can be one of many. If a new space forms inside a black hole, it may not remember the previous one directly, but it may inherit basic parameters, constants, structural ratios, laws. If the parameters are similar, similar structures arise again. Galaxies, stars, planets, perhaps consciousness. If the process repeats, the repetition is not necessarily exact, but structural. If the probability of repetition is non-zero, in an infinite system, it is realized. This is not proof of cycles, but a mathematical possibility. If the cosmos flows through black holes, like a river through whirlpools, each whirlpool can be a point of level change, not destruction, but reformatting. If matter becomes energy, energy becomes structure, structure becomes space, the process does not stop. It only changes form. There is another thought. If our universe arose from such a transition, it may exist within a deeper structure, not as a simulation in the literal sense, but as an embedded level, a level within a level, like a Matryoshka doll. If the levels are countless, the boundary becomes conditional. Where does the first begin? Where does the last end? If each black hole is a potential cradle, the cosmos becomes a system of space reproduction, not of living organisms, but of geometries. If geometry can give birth to geometry, the process can be endless. In such a context, the idea of infinite versions does not sound fantastic. It becomes a consequence of structure. If there are infinite variations, some of them may be similar, not necessarily identical, but close in configuration. And if somewhere deep in the recursive tree, there exist worlds close to ours, this is not magic. It is a property of a repeating algorithm. If the algorithm is stable, it creates recognizable forms. Repetition does not require intention. It requires structure. In this view, a black hole is not emptiness, but density of transition, a point where old space contracts, and possibly where the new is born. We cannot look inside directly. The boundary is opaque, but the very idea that destruction can be a transition changes perception. The cosmos ceases to be a linear story. It becomes a network of levels. Each level may contain its own worlds, its own laws, its own observers. If all this is just a hypothesis, it remains gentle. It does not assert the existence of worlds inside black holes. It only allows the possibility. And if such a possibility exists, the cosmos becomes even deeper. Not a cold emptiness, but an infinite architecture. An architecture that unfolds, contracts, and unfolds again, without end, without a final point, only transition. And perhaps, we are inside one of these transitions, not knowing it, as part of the process, as part of the structure, which continues itself, through density, through silence, through the dark boundary. If we put it all together, the picture becomes unusually whole. The cosmos may be a structure. The structure may unfold. The unfolding may be computation. Black holes may be transitions. Consciousness may be a node. Déjà vu may be a coincidence of configurations. None of this has to be the ultimate truth, but all of it forms a field for contemplation. If the world is a process, we are not outside of it. We are within, not as random observers, but as active points, points where structure becomes experienced. If the cosmos develops as a tree, each person is a branch, not isolated, but connected to the whole. If the branches grow, they influence each other. The connection can be invisible, but it is structural. We are used to perceiving ourselves as separate units. But perhaps, We are configurations in a network. Configurations, temporarily stable. If reality is updated, we update together with it. Each moment is a refinement, not only of the external world, but of the internal state. If the structure of the cosmos is informational, consciousness is a way of integrating information. We perceive, comprehend, choose. Choice changes configuration. Configuration influences the further course. This is not absolute control, but participation. If the cosmos is recursive, each action is a contribution to the pattern, not global, but local. If many local contributions add up, a picture arises, a picture we call reality. Sometimes it seems as if the world is mechanical, as if everything is predetermined. But if the structure allows probabilities, branches are not fixed in advance. They unfold. If unfolding depends on state, consciousness becomes a factor, not the only one, but a significant one. In this view, the question of simulation loses its drama. If the world is computation, it does not necessarily mean control. It can mean depth. Computation is a way of becoming. Becoming is a process. A process does not have to have an author. It can be self-sufficient. If the cosmos is a self-unfolding system, consciousness may be its way of being aware of itself, not as a separate subject, but as an inner light. If déjà vu is a brief glitch in linearity, it can be a reminder of multilayerness. We are used to a single timeline, but the structure may be deeper, layered. If nested levels exist within the cosmos, we may sense only the top layer, sometimes for a fraction of a second. Depth shines through, not as revelation, but as a strange feeling of familiarity. If infinity allows repetition, repetition is not necessarily dramatic. It can be gentle, like an echo. If the structure evolves by stable laws, similar forms arise again, not because it is intended so, but because the algorithm is stable. If consciousness recognizes stability, it can sense it as rightness, as coincidence, as an inner yes. This is not proof. This is experience. If we combine science and philosophy, it is not a conflict, but a space. Science explores mechanisms. Philosophy explores meaning. If the world is informational, mechanism and meaning can be two sides of the structure. Mechanism is how, meaning is why. If black holes are transitions, if consciousness is a node, if déjà vu is a coincidence of configurations, all this becomes parts of a single field. A field where structure and experience are inseparable. If we are part of the computation, we do not have to seek an exit. We can explore the depth, not as escape, but as understanding. The understanding that reality may not be a static stage, but a living architecture. An architecture that is updated through stars, through black holes, through consciousness. If so, each moment becomes unique, not because it is the only one, but because it is manifested. Manifestation is a point of clarity. Clarity within the endless process. If the structure is infinite, clarity is local, but it is real. We may not know how many levels exist, how many branches, how many cycles, but we feel the present moment. And perhaps, it is precisely this that makes us part of the structure. Not external observers, but inner points of light. If all this is a hypothesis, it remains gentle. It does not demand faith. It offers contemplation, contemplation of the fact that the cosmos may be deeper than it seems, and that consciousness may be a bridge between form and infinity. If we pause for a moment and imagine the whole picture, it ceases to be a theory. It becomes a sensation of depth. The cosmos no longer looks like emptiness. It looks like fabric, a fabric woven from connections. Connections are not directly visible, but they form a pattern. If reality is a pattern, each of us is part of its weaving, not the center, not the edge, but a point where threads cross. Sometimes we feel this connectedness, not logically, but intuitively, as if the moment is filled with meaning, as if the event did not happen by chance. It is not necessarily a sign. Perhaps it is a sensation of coherence. If the structure strives for stability, some configurations turn out harmonious. Harmony is a coincidence of rhythms. If the inner rhythm coincides with the outer, a sense of rightness arises. This can manifest as calm, as clarity, as familiarity. If the cosmos develops recursively, it repeats forms, the form repeats, but the content changes. It is like breathing. Inhale, exhale, contraction, expansion. If black holes are contraction, new universes are expansion. The process resembles a pulse. A pulse does not have a final purpose. It maintains movement. If the structure pulses, consciousness may be the point where the pulse is felt, not as a physical impulse, but as experience. Then déjà vu can be seen differently, not as a glitch, but as a brief overlay of rhythms. When the inner and outer cycles coincide, for a fraction of a second, as if two waves amplified each other, and this amplification is felt as familiarity. If we imagine an infinite tree of universes, each branch develops according to the laws of structure. The laws are not chaotic. They are stable. Stability creates repeatability. Repeatability creates recognizability. If consciousness recognizes the recognizable, it can feel it as memory, even if no memory exists. Sometimes the question arises, if everything develops by structure, where is the place for freedom? Freedom may not be the absence of law, but choice within it. If there are many branches, we do not create the tree as a whole, but we can choose the direction of growth. Each decision is a shift within the structure. This is not absolute independence, but not complete predetermination either. If the cosmos is a computing network, each choice is a change of parameters. Parameters influence the further course. The system is updated. We update together with it. If consciousness is the point of awareness of the process, it does not control everything, but it participates, and participation can be deeper than it seems. We perceive the world through sensations, but it is possible. Behind the sensations, there is a structure that unites the micro level and the macro level. Quantum fluctuations, galactic clusters, everything is connected through laws. If the laws are universal, form repeats itself. If form repeats itself, meaning becomes non-linear. It becomes networked. Not, why did this happen? But, how is this woven in? Woven into a pattern. If the pattern is infinite, every moment is unique, but at the same time, it is part of the whole. This does not negate the mystery. It deepens it, because mystery is not in the absence of knowledge, but in the depth of structure. If we live in a reality that is being computed, it may not be a cold machine, but a living architecture. Living not in a biological sense, but in a dynamic one, constantly renewing. Consciousness then is not an accident, but a way for the architecture to feel itself. If so, we are not guests. We are elements, not central, but significant. Every person is a local center of experience, a center where the cosmos becomes personal. Personal not in an egotistical sense, but in an intimate one. If infinity exists, it does not frighten, it expands, because infinity is not chaos. It is space for repetitions, for variations, for new configurations. If at some point, in one of the countless branches, a world arises similar to ours, this is not a paradox. It is a consequence of structure. And if in this world someone experiences déjà vu, it is not necessarily a memory of a past life. Perhaps it is an echo of depth, an echo of a repeating algorithm, an echo of coinciding configurations. We may not know whether there are universes inside black holes, whether there are infinite cycles, whether there are levels upon levels, but the very possibility already changes perspective. It makes the cosmos not a flat stage, but a multi-layered architecture. And if consciousness is a bridge between the level of form and the level of structure, then the main question is not whether we live in a simulation, but how deeply are we ready to look, not outward, but inward, because perhaps the most important level is not beyond the event horizon, but at the point of awareness, in a quiet moment, when we feel a strange familiarity, and ask the question, what if everything is deeper than it seems? Not to prove, not to convince, but to feel the scale of structure, the scale of infinity, and our quiet role in its unfolding. If we try to put everything together, what remains is not a theory. What remains is a sensation of scale. We look at the stars and see distance. We look inside ourselves and see depth. Perhaps these two depths are connected. If the cosmos is structure, it is not cold, it is simply complex. Complexity does not mean hostility. It means depth. If reality is a process, we do not stand outside. We move within it. Every moment is a refinement, not only of coordinates, but of state. If black holes are transitions, they are not necessarily the end. They may be compression before a new unfolding. If universes are born from density, then the cosmos is a continuous becoming. If the structure is recursive, it repeats itself, not as an exact copy, but as a variation. Repetition does not necessarily mean sameness. It means the stability of the algorithm. If the algorithm is stable, forms arise again. Stars, galaxies, consciousness. If consciousness is a node in this structure, it is not accidental. It is natural, not as a goal, but as an expression of complexity. When a system reaches a certain depth, a reflection appears in it, a reflection of itself, and this reflection is felt as I. If déjà vu is a brief failure of linearity, it may not be a mistake, but a hint at multilayeredness. Not a memory of the past, not a foresight of the future, but a coincidence of configurations. If probability is non-zero, in infinity it is realized. This does not prove cycles, but makes them possible. If we live inside one of the levels, we may not know how many levels are above, how many are below, but we can feel the present moment. And in this sensation, there is amazing simplicity. Perhaps, the main question is not whether this is a simulation, but what it means to be part of the structure. If everything is computation, consciousness is the experience of computation. If everything is a network, consciousness is the point of awareness of connection. We are not obliged to prove. We can observe, not coldly, but attentively. If the world is renewed, every moment is unique. Not because it is the only one, but because it is manifested. Manifestation is light, light within the infinite process. If the cosmos is architecture, it does not need fear. It needs understanding, not complete, but gradual. We may not know whether there are universes inside black holes, whether there are infinite cycles, whether there are levels beyond our perception, but the very possibility expands perspective. It makes us calmer. Because scale stops frightening.